Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you, and it is one I was so excited for, and that is The Silence Factory by Bridget Collins. If you're not new here, you'll have seen my book reviews. Bridget Collins wrote The Binding and The Betrayals. I have a review for The Betrayals, that link is above me now. And I absolutely adore Bridget Collins' writing. I have loved both of her previous books so much. They're two of my top reads and I would always recommend them to people. So when I saw this was coming out this year, I was so excited. So I ordered it straight away and I read it as soon as it arrived, and I did read it quite quickly as well. Now I do have quite a lot to say about this book. I'll try to do spoiler free and then I'll give you time to skip to, but honestly I think I need to have spoilers in order to discuss this book because it did tear me a bit. Let me read you guys the blurb first. Before we get into that, don't forget, if you like what you see, to subscribe to my channel. Your continuous support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. Blurby blurb. Henry dreams of silence. A world without the clattering of carriages through cobbled streets, the distant cries of drunken brawls, the relentless ticking of the clock. Then he meets a fascinating, mysterious gentleman who sells just that. Precious silk that can drown out the clamour of the world and everything Henry is so desperate to escape. Summoned to Sir Edward's secluded factory to try to cure his young daughter's deafness, Henry is soon drawn deeper and deeper into the origins of the otherworldly gift. A gift that has travelled from ancient Mediterranean glades to English libraries. Ignoring repeated warnings from the girl's secretive governess, he allows himself to fall under the spell of Sir Edward and his silk. But when he learns its true cost, will it be too late to turn back? Now, first of all, the cover is very different from Bridget Collins' previous books. This is the cover of this. For an example, I'll do the first book. This is The Binding, so it's quite a lot different. It has people on the front. Just to prove my point, I will do The Betrayals as well. You see, these are very similar in style. So it did surprise me how different this one looked, but it's still very beautiful. Underneath, we actually have quite a cool cobweb on here. And inside is a very botanical, which I enjoyed. There is a prologue at the start of this. If you haven't seen my video on to prologue or not to prologue, that link is above me now. But I have some feelings about prologues. Most of the time, they annoy me, but some books do it really well and they are sometimes needed, but in a lot of cases they're not. In this one, I felt the prologue gave far too much away. By the time you reach where the prologue was up to in the book, you're already like halfway through the book, so you know more than the main protagonist pretty much all the way through, which I did find quite infuriating. I wanted to be surprised with the protagonist, because with The Binding and The Betrayals, that was part of what made those books great for me, was the realization of, oh, that's what's going on, and I never got that with this one. Also, all the men in this book are complete assholes, like awful people. So just a heads up on that. There is no nice guy really represented in this entire book. So let's start with my quotes. The first quote is page 9. I should have asked him the difference between religion and superstition, except that the former is what he believes and the latter what I believe. I just thought that was very poignant. Page 55. We build walls to shelter our bodies from the world, but we leave our minds open to the assault on every side. This is so true, and noise pollution is actually a very big thing. This is part of a long speech that I won't read for you guys, but it's a long speech from our protagonist Henry, and it's very, very powerful. The first quote from page 9 is actually a diary. So there is a book within a book in this, and I did enjoy the book within. It is the diary of Edward's grandma. I think mum. I'm not too sure. I'd need to look that up. Page 70. James told me once that Plato said a man who could not swim was as ignorant as one who could not read. But he has never cared to help me remedy my incapability. jerk. Page 98. He meant to return after a few breaths, as though he had simply had an urgent need to empty his bladder. But he was shaking, his head spinning as though he had run miles without stopping, and his shirt was wet with sweat. Slowly his thoughts cleared and he began to shiver. I really like this quote. It's a great representation of social anxiety and of having a panic attack, and how you don't realize sometimes how scared you've been. Me and my partner Matt always say this of, you can tell the difference and smell the difference between exercise sweat and fear sweat. So you can tell, sometimes you don't really know at the time how scared you are, and then later you're like, oh, that's fear. That's the smell of fear. And we've learned to differentiate between those smells. If you haven't smelled this difference, I really recommend, it sounds weird, but honestly, smell yourself after exercise and smell yourself on a normal day, and then smell yourself after maybe something that you find scary. So like a job interview or a presentation, or maybe you're scared of driving on a specific road, of heights, something that you're scared to do, and then smell yourself afterwards, and seriously, you will smell the difference. And I just liked how this represented just the sweat and how important that is to actually what's going on. Page 135. What is extraordinary is the way it must physically embody a complex formula where X is transformed to its corresponding Y. I have never seen such perfect evidence that God is an enthusiast of algebra. Indeed, I said. I am not a particular devotee of algebra myself, but I suppose if God invented mosquitoes and leprosy, he would not be ashamed of a branch of mathematics. I feel this book has a little war with religion, though I don't think it's integral to the plot. It's in there. It's not until page 197 that the book within a book catches up with the prologue. So just for reference, page 197 is there. So you're on to chapter 10, and you are just over halfway in the book. And then the book within a book catches up with the prologue. Page 253. More than one young lady had paused at the head of the stairs to catch the banister and stagger in a half swoon. They did not swoon entirely, of course, since that would have endangered their lives, and coiffures, I can't pronounce that word, just enough to fall into the supportive embrace of a young man. I just find that funny. We're now in my overall review of the book. This bit will have spoilers in, so if you don't want to see those, skip to this time here for my template overview. So that will give you the stars out of 5, but for now, this is gonna have spoilers. I had to think really hard about what I rated this book, because I absolutely adored The Binding and The Betrayals, and this one just didn't work for me. And I really wanted it to work for me, so I was really disappointed. There is a suggested romance between Ashmore and our protagonist Harry, so Edward and Harry. But the problem is, Edward is just horrible. He's a nasty person, and he belittles Henry all the time. And it's just not a good relationship. So when Henry is so enamored by him, I just couldn't understand why. Because he was so awful. I was like, what on earth? It's not even like it was enemies to lovers the whole time. The guy's a prick. I just couldn't understand. I understood in the diary because that was an older relationship. They were already married. That was, an abusive married relationship. She was trapped in that abuse. Henry's a single dude. Problems. But I did find the romance in the diary believable. That was good. The writing style was great, as you'd expect with Bridget Collins. I loved the story concept. The concept of this spider that can weave a web that when you put it together can stop all sound. It also makes you go a bit weird, but it does stop all sound. I thought that was really magical and whimsical. I loved how there was a whole island which basically had a kind of religion based on these spiders and what they could do. So I did enjoy that aspect of the book, but I just didn't understand why it had to do the prologue, which told me everything about them basically at the start, so I had nothing left to work out. We did have quite good representation. We had quite a few deaf characters, which made me think of Deep Light by Frances Hardinge, which is this book here, which is the first book I read which represented deaf people, so that was good, and I thought it was represented quite well. The characters, though, I just hated them all, really. The plot was interesting, but didn't really kick off until the end. Until that point, it was quite meh. So I was just disappointed, and the relationships were just really abusive, honestly. Welcome back. If you're back from spoiler free, we'll go into my template of a book review. So first off, enjoyment. I gave it a 5 out of 10 for many reasons, which you'll have seen in the spoiler section, but I struggled to fully enjoy this book. Writing style, 9 out of 10. Bridget Collins is a fantastic writer. It reads really smoothly. Plot, I gave it a 7 because it didn't feel like it had one properly until the end. World building, 10. It was a really well thought out world. You could really imagine everything in it. Characterization, I gave it 5. Now, that is because, A, I hated most of the people in it, but mainly all of the characters flip constantly. It's a constant battle between them. It's like they all flip in an instant, which made it not that believable. You couldn't see it happening. Representation, I gave it a 10 out of 10. There's great representation of deaf people in here and a good variety of cast and abilities. And finally, originality, I did give it a 10. It's such an original and interesting story. I just needed it pulled off a bit better. So that gave it 51 out of 70, and I gave it 3 stars out of 5. I was shocked with giving a Bridget Collins a 3-star review because the other 2 have been 5-star reads for me. Honestly, if you watch the spoiler section, you know why, but it was the representation of something. It was the romances in this book just were not it for me. They were just not believable and just didn't feel healthy. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If I see as soon as I upload, click the little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post my books pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!